people are invested in your brand, they want it to be better, right? So they're going to be the people posting about you. They're going to be the people that are coming and eating the product even more. So
hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. It is a pleasure to have Chris Treloar here today, CEO of PLNTBurger, over 13 locations. We're going to be talking about the plant-based food industry, growth, capital raising via Start Engine, and being able to ensure a consistent customer experience that stimulates peer-to-peer marketing. Chris, thanks for taking the time to join the podcast here.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jason.
And thought we'd kick things off before we get in too deep into the discussion with your background. What is your history? Did you get involved as the CEO of PLNTBurger? What do you want the audience to know?
Yeah, I mean, it's really all I've ever done. I've been in restaurants since I was 16. I think I kind of came to this, maybe a little differently than most. My kind of had a tough upbringing. My mom and I struggled a lot when I was younger. We actually lived in hotels for a period of time. So had to work early, got into serving, had my oldest son when I was 20 and wanted to do a little bit more than serve at the time. So asked if there was some opportunity to be a manager where I was working and, kind of just grew from there. So have always really been, really motivated to grow my career. Didn't really want my children to ever have to kind of suffer the same way that I did when I was younger. So every time there was an opportunity to grow within any sort of organization, I took the opportunity and just continued to try to work really hard. Being in the position I'm in, or even as you grow, sometimes not having a degree is tough. You're up against many other people looking for the same jobs, great college background. So I always felt like I had to work twice as hard to make things happen. I think that really built character. So it was good for me. And, I've grown through various different companies and different positions. Most recently, I was at a company called La Madeleine as the senior director of operations, and then came to PLNTBurger initially as the vice president of operations. Worked with the team to really optimize our operations and get the stores profitable. And then in November of last year, became the CEO. So now we've been focused on profits at the company level. So
What an awesome story. How many of us have worked in food and beverage earlier in our life? Like you said, you got in at 16, tough upbringing, first child at 20, you had to produce and you worked your way up that corporate ladder, VP of operations. You were so impactful and effective there. I imagine that you were brought in as CEO, and you're talking about profitability. Can you speak a bit about what that path has looked like? Was it just always profitable for PLNTBurger and you're trying to get larger margins? Were there things that you needed to turn around, different obstacles that you needed to approach? I know you guys are growing. As I mentioned, 13 locations, over 11.2 million in sales last year alone, and continuing to spread from here. But what is that journey to your profitability goals, your margins looked like?
yeah, I mean, we weren't profitable. 3.5 years ago when I first started, I mean, even store level profit wasn't a thing. We were running probably in the 80s prime cost, really struggling to make money. And I think the first and kind of the most important thing was really educating the team. I mean, we had lots of great operators that were making great food and taking really great care of the customers. And most of them didn't even know that they were losing money. I actually remember one of my first experiences, we had one of our GMs had come and was asking for a raise. So before we could talk about a raise, I really wanted to dig into the P&L with him. And I said, are you aware that your store is currently losing $8,000 a month? And he said, no, I had no idea. I thought we were doing great. Our service scores are good and food is good and the store's clean. And I said, yeah, I mean, you are doing a great job, but unfortunately the company is, losing quite a bit of money. And that makes it very difficult to give you a raise. You know what I mean? Would you want to come to work every day knowing that you were paying to be at work versus coming to be paid? And he said, no, absolutely not. I said, so why don't we work on that? And, we'll go from there. We've given that same general manager now 2 raises, and he has the most profitable store in the company. And it wasn't that he was doing a bad job. It was that he had no idea. He had never looked at a P&L. He didn't know how to impact food cost. There's lots of things, obviously, we had to do as a company to get to profitability. But I think the most important thing was really just letting the team know that, their role in it and making them understand it. And most people, once they feel a sense of ownership, they get that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. More than anything, now they want to be successful. So, very quickly, people, the more they talked about schedules, the more that we talked about food costs, the more that we dug into inventory every single week, numbers kind of immediately started to come around. And then outside of the units, we began to negotiate directly with vendors. So when we're ordering our products, we're not just ordering from Cisco, whatever it has. We're going direct to Beyond Meat, direct to Tyndall, negotiating a deviation so that we know what our landed cost will be before we're ever even moving forward with the product. And although, again, 13 locations doesn't sound like a lot in the grand scheme of the restaurant business, but for a plant-based restaurant, that's a lot. I mean, we're one of the larger kind of chains out there. So there's a ton of really great innovation that's happening in the space, and people would really love to bring the product in to be kind of tested in our stores, which allows us the opportunity to really negotiate pricing with these guys, bring the product in at a super reasonable level. So we've been able to take our COGS, which were, like I said, we were at the 80% prime cost when I started 3.5 years ago. We now consistently are below 54, and we've even, several weeks
Wow.
into the year been below 50%. Again, just through really good negotiations. And what I think is the most amazing thing about that is that our pricing is not astronomical. I mean, if you look at the cost of a burger, we're less than other meat-based competitors in the space, and much, much less than the other vegan burger places in the space. So what I think is great is we've been able to develop these really great margins while also still being able to deliver the product at a very reasonable cost.
And that cost, that price is a big part of the marketing. It's a big part of the product positioning as a whole. So you're saying you were able to negotiate with vendors, looking at all the operating procedures, even getting clear with your general managers for each location to show, hey, this is the what so, and this is where we need to make the adjustments. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to grow here. And that whole time you're able to maintain the cost. So really getting connected to the measurements, looking at opportunities to improve, activating and continuing to manage until the numbers are where they need to be, and getting down to 54%, even under 50% some months. As very strong analyzed businesses all day long, those are standout numbers, especially for your industry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And again, it is just, constant talking. We look at schedules still on a weekly basis. We're still scrutinizing kind of every area of the business all the time, which I think is very important. I think you can never kind of be satisfied with the number. You've got to constantly be trying to best yourself.
So you were talking about some of the other plant-based food options out there.
Mhm.
Why was PLNTBurger created? Why did you get driven to work in the plant-based industry? What are some of the challenges and opportunities in focusing in this sector of food and beverage?
Yeah, I think for many people, they just don't understand it, right? I think people believe that it's always going to be a trade down, right? If I'm going to eat a plant-based burger, I'm never going to get the same kind of indulgence, the same flavor. And that's just not true anymore. I mean, as I said before, the innovation in the space is crazy. I mean, the things that people are doing. I had an egg the other day that had a yolk on it. The yolk breaks and bleeds like a real yolk and tastes just like an egg. So I think the biggest obstacle for us, the world is comprised of, or the United States at least, with 1% or less vegans, right? You're not going to build a large scale, massive business out of that. So for us, the most important thing is trying to convince the flexitarians and even the omnivores, the other folks who would otherwise never want to try the product, that not only this is not a trade down, it tastes just as delicious, just as indulgent as anything else that you would have, but there's so many other benefits to your health, benefits to the environment, benefits to animal welfare. That's really where it's been for me. And when I started here, by the way, I wasn't vegan. I've now been vegan for a little over a year. And I think that perspective has been great for me, kind of the understanding of why did I choose to go vegan? Because I didn't just choose to go vegan because I worked here. I chose to go vegan because I was doing a bunch of research, trying to learn more about the mission piece of the business. The more research I did, the more it made sense to me. Like, oh my goodness, this is better for me. I want to be vegan because it's better for my health. It's better for the environment. the more I learned about it, the more compelling it was. And now that's all I eat, and I think the more that you can get people to, do their own research or at least try the product.
Mhm.
We used to have, we'd give people $5 off if they joined our loyalty program. And a little over a year ago, we decided we're just going to give people a free sandwich. So free any sandwich you want, regardless of the size or the type of sandwich it is, because we really wanted to break down that barrier. Pre-vegan me would tell you I don't want to pay $4 for a vegan sandwich because I didn't want to try one. But if you're going to give me something for free, I mean, why not? Even if I hate it, I'm not paying anything for it. And we saw really immediate kind of adoption of that and grew our user base. We now have over 135,000 app downloads, over 80,000 emails. That I think is a big part of the fact that we've now kind of broken down the barrier. And I think when people try the product, they immediately realize it's not a trade down anymore. It's what's happened with electric cars, right? Like, 20 years ago, nobody would have dreamed that every car company in the world now is like, well, I'm going to go electric fully by the state. But it's because it's no longer a trade down. You're no longer driving something that you wouldn't want to drive. You're driving stuff that's actually cool and fast and, just as awesome as it would have been if it was, had gas in it.
I've made that jump myself this year. And like you said, it wasn't a trade down, it was a trade up, and had a nice car before that. And I'm always exploring different foods. I'm not a vegan myself, always looking to be healthier. Taste, flavor is a big driving factor. What have you found, not just from the enthusiasts, not just from vegans, but let's say traditional fast food customers? What stands out to them? Is it the health benefits? Is it the sustainability? Is it the taste profile? There are different flavors that I really enjoy at vegan restaurants, and I go to with my friends. How are you then able to shape the product, shape the menu to speak to both audiences? I know you've touched on it a bit, but curious to see if you have focus groups, different marketing studies. How are you able to stay on top of that and speak to your audience's demands?
Yeah. I mean, taste and convenience is still number one, right? Like people are
Yeah.
still going to, it's why we eat fast food. I don't think anyone is ever out on the road, stopping by any kind of fast food restaurant thinking that they're doing something that's great for themselves, right? In most cases, you're done eating the fast food you've eaten and you probably don't feel great about it. You're doing it because it's convenient, because you know it, you recognize it, you're in a hurry. So convenience is super important. I think the ability for people to place an order on the app, place an order at a kiosk, place an order in
Mm.
person, create all of these opportunities for people to order easily, break down as many of those kind of barriers, and it's got to taste really good. We're lucky we have a celebrity chef that's created all of our menu items. And Spike is incredibly passionate about the way the product feels and the way it tastes. So we're always looking. We just made a change our cheese because we found this new product that was incredibly indulgent. So I think guests are still making decisions based on those things.
Mm.
What we have to do is convince them that not only is the product delicious and convenient, but that there are some benefits. We really tried to last year and this year present all of those. We like to say we're the less guilty pleasure. I don't think you need to beat down the health door because listen, if you're eating fast food 3 days a week, you're probably not going to be in the best health regardless of the product, right? But the taste, the convenience, you're going to eat fast food sometimes. You're going to have a burger occasionally. You're going to be out on the road, not have time to make yourself something at home. So if you're going to make that choice, we're the much less guilty pleasure. So there's less sodium, there's no cholesterol, there's a ton of other benefits that we've really tried to highlight when we speak to people. I personally believe that and not just belief, but through various different studies, we've seen that a lot of people are making the change to being vegan because of the health related benefits, whether it's because you've got some sort of underlying condition and you now have to eat more plant-based food because you're worried about heart disease or there's lots of reasons. I think, so to me, that's the thing that we try to highlight the most. Those are all of the other benefits that go along with it. And I think the more people dig into it, the more they kind of recognize those other ones. But I think at the base of it is like, I have a lactose intolerance, or I have a gluten intolerance, or have some other sort of dietary preference. I've been vegan now for a year. I've taken blood pressure medicine since I was 25. Just kind of runs in my family. My grandfather had his first stroke when he was in his 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Since I became vegan, I've taken no blood pressure medicine in the past 4 months now.
Wow.
So Yeah, and I changed nothing else about my life. I mean, I continued. I've always exercised. I've always taken good care of my body, but for some reason, I just always had high blood pressure, and now I don't. And I mean, I don't think there's any coincidence for that. I mean, there's definite benefits there. So
Yeah. And whatever it is for the individual, for me, I'll try to change it my diet, whether it's weight loss, inflammation. I get a lot of migraine headaches, things along those lines. I find to have some intentionality behind it. And those little choices, those little decisions make all the difference. They can make it that much easier to stick with as well, too. If it's around flavor profile, convenience, it starts to feel easy.
yeah.
You're not
Mhm.
sacrificing, like you said, it's not the trade down. It's, hey, this feels good, and I feel like I'm making the right life choices here.
For sure.
You guys are primarily on the East Coast. We're based in the West Coast. Love to just be blunt. When are you coming out to us? But what are some of the obstacles? What are some of the considerations for expansion? And I know there's things you could share and other things you can't touch on, but especially around sustainability, where you guys source, high quality ingredients. What are some of the things that uh, come into the discussion around those plans?
Yeah, I think anytime you grow, there's always I think when you're growing a business, there's this want to go everywhere, right? You just want to grow. You just want to grow as quickly as possible. And I think at times that can be detrimental to a business. You grow
Mm,
without proper capital. You grow, and this is actually happened to us. We grew pretty quickly without the amount of capital you really need to do that, and that can tank a business. So we made the decision last year to close two of our New York locations just because we had built in New York. We built three locations very close to each other. Um, there's still not enough of a market for vegan food, I believe, to be that close to each other. So we really kind of cannibalized those stores. So we made the decision, tough decision, to close two of those locations. But we made the decision because we really wanted to fuel that one location we kept. And that worked. I mean, we retained about 63% of the overall sales now out of just the one store.
yeah.
That store is now highly profitable. So as we think about growth going forward, we really want to be very choosy about how we grow. We think going too far away sometimes can be detrimental. You have to set up supply chain in a totally different area. About 85% of our SKUs are proprietary because again, we're bringing product in for our menu. We're bringing a cheese in specific to our menu. We're bringing chicken in specific to our menu. So going very far away, although could be really exciting, may not be as may not be the right decision for us now because we really have everything set up here. We have the team here. We have the product here. Now that's not to say if those opportunities came up, we wouldn't try to find the best way to do them, but we certainly want to be cognizant about where we're going to go, uh, how the leases are going to be set up. So we have this partnership with Whole Foods that really allows us to go kind of anywhere, do anything because we pay percentage based rent. We
Mhm.
kind of split the cost with Whole Foods to build the stores, which allows us to build them for much, much, much less than you would build a brick and mortar. So over the course of the next year, we're really looking to expand mostly that partnership. And then once you get to a certain size, you can take many more chances. I think it's just getting to that size intelligently so you don't grow too quickly and collapse on yourself. You know what I mean?
Has to be all calculated. And I like the strategic partner element in growing through that Whole Foods partnership. And could tell you as a marketer, it's all about social proof. It's all about third party validation. If I see a new vegan burger option pop up in Marina Del Rey or in Los Angeles, I may say I want to try it, but have some question marks around it. If I'm told by a friend, if I'm reading about it, I know you guys have been featured by a lot of the major publishers and especially in the markets that you service. But if it's inside Whole Foods, if it's part of the Whole Foods brand, it's the stamp of approval and makes me think, oh yeah, this is the one to try. There's other options, but here's where I want to go. So I imagine that took years to put together, but I can tell you just from the growth lens, it's huge.
Oh, absolutely. And to your point, I mean, people who shop at Whole Foods shop there for a reason, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a great kind of image to have to be within Whole Foods. Whole Foods has these incredibly high standards for ingredients. So the fact that we can serve our food within that structure has been huge for us. And then, um, to your point, it's like you really can kind of go anywhere, do anything. We have a store in Dedham, Massachusetts that struggled. If that store was a brick and mortar and we had spent $1 million to build it, we'd be in a lot of trouble. But because it wasn't, we're still able to be profitable. We're still able to kind of take our time and build the market out well because we're within Whole Foods, because we're paying a percentage of sales and not a fixed dollar flat rent. Um, so it has been incredibly valuable to us, and we want to continue to leverage it as we grow.
Makes a lot of sense. And have to ask, we're talking about taste a little bit. What are your favorite menu items? What would you recommend for listeners, viewers next time they're at one of your locations?
I love the BIG. The BIG has always been, we released it about a year ago, and ever since we released it, it's been my favorite. So it's just a quarter pounder um, cheeseburger. It's delicious. We just released these wings, which we're selling so quickly, we may actually have to cut them off for a little while while we let the vendor restock. That are absolutely amazing. I mean, I've never, again, I've only been vegan now for about a year. They taste so similar, so delicious, incredibly indulgent. So those are also really great.
It's like you said, such a big component about this. There are burger spots, on the West Coast here that are legendary. There's national chains, and you kind of seek out things for the flavor profiles. There's a guilt associated with it for me. I actually ate a lot of fast food in the 90s. Growing up, felt like a normal thing to do. I'm not to say, I had bad parents or anything, but it was everywhere. As kids, we go to the play place. It was such a big part of the culture in my mind.
Mm,
So I still gravitate towards a burger and fries for, let's say, a cheat meal, and to be able to incorporate, chicken into that. It just sounds like a lot of, things I shouldn't be doing necessarily, but knowing, hey, this is good for me. It makes all the difference. I imagine that that's what's in the psyche of a lot of the target audience members, and even just looking at some of the testimonials and some of the influencer statements and posts, it seems like that's the consistency. So I think it's such a big deal in the fast food industry today, where, hey, we're moving away from these, generalizations and the stereotypical versions. We're doing things that are good for the environment. I was looking at all the stats on your site for land and water and all of the, emissions that you're reducing throughout the whole process, taking into account health, but all based around that taste. So if it's something that you love and you feel good doing it, you get that emotion when you're actually consuming the product. It's easy to start getting into your patterns, which makes sense on why your locations, have those regulars.
yeah. And we've always felt too that burgers are kind of the easiest kind of barrier to entry, right? Like we agree. I mean, if we continue to consume meat at the rate that we're consuming it, we're not going to have a home much, forever, right? So there has to be a change. Burgers to us are kind of the easiest barrier to entry, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
something, to your point, you're very comfortable trying, you're very comfortable eating. So if you can create something that's just as indulgent, just as delicious, but has all these benefits to the environment, and you could get the world to kind of adopt that, I mean, it would be life changing, And I think, one thing that we've really tried to focus on is, menu innovation is hard. It's really hard. You change just the cheese to your burger, that's tough. You've got to figure out how much product you have left before you make the change. You have to reintroduce it to the entire, team. You have to make sure it's being made correctly. And I think in a lot of cases, people shy away from it because of that, right? It's like, might only save me a couple cents, or maybe it's even like a little more expensive. But for us, we really force ourselves. We try everything. We bring in products. We just yesterday we were trying a bunch of new stuff, just to make sure that we're constantly on the cutting edge and we're constantly making the product continue to taste more and more delicious. So again, I want it to be a trade up. You know what I mean? I want you to say like, I'm
Yeah.
going to go eat that plant-based burger, not just because it's it's good for me, not just because it's good for the environment, but because it tastes better than the products I'm going to get somewhere else. So we're constantly forcing ourselves to try to best not only ourselves financially, but also best ourselves from a culinary perspective.
And I've experienced that myself. There's places I go to and I'll get the buffalo cauliflower wings over the chicken wings. I think they taste better, not a trade down. I look forward to tasting plant burger and having the same experience, but can attest to it myself. And again, you have these loyalists, these customers that are consistently coming in. You've chosen to do a start engine, a regulation crowdfund campaign. Can you speak a bit to the decision making process around that? Because you spoke about your audiences a bit, which are huge. over 100,000 installs, over 80,000 email followers. It's a whole nother level of connection to bring them in as shareholders. Can you speak about why you launched a Reg CF campaign and how the audience has been responding and what that means for long-term growth for the brand?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we raised money with our Series A. We built a store in Brookline, Massachusetts. We're in the midst of kind of deciding what to do next. Are we going to go out and, raise a Series B? What we're going to do. And we had heard a lot about the crowdfunding. We actually had a member of our board that was incredibly interested in it. They had bought stock in another restaurant when they were a kid, and they remembered that connection with it. And to your point, I think we have so many loyal guests, so many loyal supporters of not just the food, but also the mission of the company, that we thought, hey, this is the perfect opportunity to give everybody this opportunity and to feel that connection. We want the people that are brand evangelists to feel not just connected to the brand because they have like-minded goals or because they love the food, but now they have this opportunity to really be aligned with the brand from an investment perspective, a financial perspective, and we think it's a great investment. We think this is something that our hope is that somebody invests for their child, and 20 years from now, like, man, I'm so glad you bought that for me. This has been huge. It paid for my college or something else. Who really knows, but we just really wanted to give that opportunity. We thought we could get just the right amount of money that we need to build the locations we need to next year and kind of fuel our next stage of growth. We're really hoping that, after we get through this next stage of growth, we'll continue to kind of be self-funding by then. And to us, this was kind of the sweet spot. It was just the perfect kind of, allow our fans, our biggest fans, to invest in the brand. And kind of build more brand evangelists. I also think it's an incredible marketing opportunity, right? Like you're allowing people, once I think people are invested in your brand, they want it to be better, right? So they're going to be the people posting about you. They're going to be the people that are coming and eating the product even more. So for us, it was just an amazing opportunity. And the more that we talked about it, the more that the board heard about it, we just thought it was a no-brainer. So
I preach it all the time, being able to have investors, people come in who are customers to then evolve into shareholders and vice versa. People who see the opportunity in the market. What was it, 16.5 billion in plant-based meat sales in 2021, projecting 139.4 billion by 2035. So with your positioning in that space, like you said, the potential growth, and I know we can't make forward-looking statements or anything like that, but it's obvious. Consumers are going to gravitate more towards these products based on recent trends. And if you're a brand at the forefront in these markets and have those evangelists that love the product, love the taste, and they're sharing, it's the perfect type of brand to bring into a crowdfund environment where social sharing's big. It's a marketing tool in its own right. Someone comes in and invests, they share with their friends, family. Hey, listen to this company I just invested in. In fact, there's a location half hour from here. Let's go check it out. So it's a great way to really build that connection between the brand and your customers.
Oh, 100%. And one of I did a few weeks ago, actually, is I took all of the emails of the people that had invested and I cross-referenced them with our app because I wanted to see how many of them. And it was wild how many people had made a purchase after that, you know what I mean? Or within that time frame of them investing. So I do think there's some truth to that, or it's very true that, these people are not just investing in the brand financially. They're like, oh, well, hey, if I'm going to invest in it, I'm also going to eat it, So it has been a really great process, and we're excited about it.
So you've seen the success. We've talked about how you were able to turn the finances around from 80%, 54%, 50% in the prime, better margins. We've talked about how you've been able to successfully bring shareholders in from your audience base. What would you recommend for viewers, listeners who are tuned in and want to make similar actions towards their own brand or a project that they're working on? What should they test out towards their growth? What are some fundamentals that they could apply to their own businesses, their own rounds?
You mean as far as going the crowdfunding route, or
Could
just in
be
general? I'm
going
sorry.
towards crowdfunding, sure, or just being able to expand, being able to tighten up margins, being able to grow profits.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, one of the most important things is really getting your team involved. I mean, we've talked about Start Engine on our calls. We have weekly, we have signage in every single one of our stores. And even before Start Engine, we were raising money in our Series A. Our store level operators knew where we were financially as a company. They knew, um, kind of every step of the way they've been brought into the fold. So I think, one of the most important things you can do is really make your team feel like owners, every single one of them, keep them kind of informed in what's going on. And then, I think you need to be very honest with yourselves. Again, I think there's this need, and it's when you're talking to investors, it's when you're, thinking through it yourselves, that we just need to find a way to be massive, right? We got to grow, we got to grow, we got to grow, we got to, make more money. We've got to do all these things. And I think you've really got to be honest with yourself, and you've got to make sure that you fully understand your business. You understand every facet. You've gone through some ups and downs. I tell people all the time, I think failure is some of the best lessons you learn, right? Like if you do everything right forever, it's not nearly as valuable as if you make some missteps along the way and you get to learn from those. Some of those failures have taught me more than anything I've ever learned. Um, so again, I think you need to really understand the business, really be honest with yourself. Um, and then do what you've learned through all of those exercises.
Getting the team involved, really understanding the business, going through the ups and downs, understanding where you want to grow, not just, hey, let's become massive, but building out a roadmap, an algorithmic roadmap. I know when we're working on the capital raise, the more clear that approach is, hey, it's these channels to reach these audiences. We need at least this many people to get to the offering page, this amount of conversions. If it's not working, here are the stages that we need to focus on, can make all the difference. So speaking to that, optimization, not everything works right out of the gate. Like you said, you need to experience the ups and the downs. When you're experiencing the downs, what are the best ways to improve, to pivot, to optimize to a point of effectiveness?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, the one thing is you first have to understand the business. So you've really got to go through, and we went through this exercise several times where we go through and we look at every line item on the P&L, and then we scrutinize everything that we spend money on. And then we try to take two buckets. So you take your must-haves, your likes, and then your don't needs, right? Like your must-haves are things you can't get rid of. Your likes are like, okay, we like that, it helps, but I don't know that we need it. And your don't needs are just things that you don't need. You can over systematize the restaurant business incredibly. So I think you're constantly being inundated with people trying to sell you a tool. That tool, everyone's got an ROI metric, right? It's like you're gonna use this tool, you're gonna immediately make more money. And I think in the restaurant industry, you can kind of over systematize things.
Mhm.
And there's a point of diminishing returns, right? You can't have 30 different systems and expect every one of them to have the same impact on ROI. Eventually, systems are just systems, and you're no longer optimizing your business. You're not just spending money in a bunch of different places. So
Right.
we went through this exercise both in the beginning when I started, once in the middle, and then once most recently when we made some of the toughest decisions we made as a company, where we just kind of looked through and said, okay, what can we do without? What are the things that we absolutely need that we can't live without? What are the things that we would like to have, but maybe we can look at them again later down the road if possible? And what are the things we just don't need? And through that exercise, I think, you really start to understand your business. I think as a business owner, CEO, there's probably a bunch of stuff you're spending money on you don't even know about anymore, right? You've been making decisions and moving quickly. So the exercise really helps you to understand what is being used.
Mhm.
And then also, again, just allows you to make those decisions, and you can continue to kind of, optimize your business in that way. And sometimes, I say all the time that a lot of times we build these really big teams. It's like, right, we need a huge team to scale. Sometimes bureaucracy is bad. It can take longer to get things done, and it can really overcomplicate things. You know, we have a really, really small team. I mean, there's literally three of us that work in corporate, and then we have our store teams, and that's it. And at times it can feel like you have a lot to do,
Mhm.
but because it's so small, we're talking about everything all the time. We're getting things done really quickly. I could call, my two other colleagues tomorrow and say, hey, I want to roll LTO out in a month, and we could do that, maybe even a couple of weeks if we had to. I think
Sure.
In a lot of other cases with really large teams, it's tough to do that. It's like, well, let's set a meeting up and let's discuss it, and then we'll put together a deck, and then we'll do this and we'll do that. Um, so I think we've really been able to optimize through just kind of tightening up, really tightening the screws of the business, continuing to work together as a small team, and really been able to kind of see the fruits of our labor that way.
Well, it's working. You've been able to manage it to a point of effectiveness. Once CEOs are able to see that their systems are working, the numbers are being hit, the goals are being reached. You talked about being very intentional with scaling. What are the best approaches? What are any tips, examples you could share around what we're all playing for? And again, it has to be done the right way, like you said, but scale.
Yeah. I mean, for us, we definitely have a huge advantage, right? Because we have the Whole Foods partnership in our back pocket. I think one thing that restaurant industry in general is trending towards that people should recognize is that so much of our business is not in the restaurant anymore. I mean, years ago, you wanted to have big dining rooms, large places for people to meet and eat. That's not really the case anymore. The majority of your food is going out digitally. Your marketing is being done digitally. So I think you don't need to have these massive spaces anymore. We really look to, if we're going to build on the street again, we would look in that 1,000 square foot range, somewhere where we have maybe a few token seats, but the majority of the business is, being put in bags and taken out. Mm-hmm. And then I think from a real estate perspective, there's always been a need in the past. You want to be kind of on Main Street, right? It's all about foot traffic. Because so much of your product is leaving, because most of your marketing is being done digitally, you could save yourself some of those rent dollars and be a street or two off, still play in the same sandbox, right? I still have all the same customers digitally. I still have all the same kind of area that I'm selling to, but now I'm paying much less in rent. And to me, rent has always been a big piece. I think, again, and we did this ourselves, right? We're building in places we thought were the best, right? Manhattan, where we had a ton of foot traffic. But again, you got to be honest with yourselves. Am I going to do, $5-6 million the same as the place next to me who has twice as much kind of, backing, twice as much of a market already? Or is that going to be tough? And if I can be honest with myself and say, probably not going to do that, then I wouldn't sign a deal like that. I'd look for something that's going to be more kind of in line with what I'm doing and what I'm looking for. And that's what I would say. I mean, I would always say, just, again, I think it's about knowing your business, being honest with yourself, knowing where the trends are. And right now the trends are digital. I mean, again, you're going to do most of your marketing digitally. You're going to do most of your sales digitally. So you don't necessarily need to worry about being right there on that Main Street where people are walking by constantly.
Right. There's a conquesting ego element of, hey, we're going to be Manhattan, but have to be honest with yourself, know your business, understand what's working, and grow from there versus your initial intentions. We always say we have assumptions going in, but we need the data to show us what's working and can ramp up from there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome, Chris. Well, you've given us so much great information and insight here today. I feel like traveling out to the East Coast just to try a PLNTBurger myself here, and that is in the cards. For listeners, viewers who are tuned in, where can they go to learn more? And what are any final words you want to leave us with today?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to any one of our socials. You can go to PLNTBurger.com. Definitely come check us out. We're in Manhattan. We're in Wynwood and Jenkintown, right outside of Philadelphia. We're in DC, Maryland, Virginia, Boston. We're in the outskirts of Boston. So if you're in the area, check out the food. I think that's the most important thing. You got to try it. It's delicious. And once you do, I think you'll be a customer forever. And listen, I think the investment's great. So if you'd like to invest, go to Start Engine and look up PLNTBurger's Raise and, become what did you call them earlier?
Investors.
Become an investor. I like that. I might have to steal that from you.
It's a good term. It speaks to why regulation crowdfunding was created. And we're big fans of the brand, Chris, rooting you on and on these next chapters. And want to thank you so much for taking the time, opening up with us today. Know you're a busy man, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to speak to me too, Jason. It's been great.
Awesome, Chris. And thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Take care.